A legendary weekend in the Lou. PGA Tour champions compete in the Stifel Charity Classic, presented by Compliance Solutions, September 4th through 7th, and COAR. Perform live with your Friday ticket. Visit StifelCharityClassic.com today.
Welcome to STL Sports Central and Card Central 365, powered by Gray Bar. All content provided by DraftKings. The crown is yours. He's Brenden Schaeffer. I'm Stefan Caray. And last night, more of the same from Andre Pallante. It was a tough outing for him, really, from the first pitch of the game. The first 6 pitches of the game, if you want to be exact. Hit, and hit some more. I think I saw somebody on Twitter say it was a yes hitter last night against Andre Pallante. And Mike Claiborne said it in our coverage on 365. You had to avoid the big inning, a 5 spot in the first. It was not avoided by Mr. Pallante yesterday.
No, he found the big inning, and he found it quick, and the Cardinals were out of the game. I have to do an afternoon radio show, and I was down at the ballpark last night, but I missed the top of the first inning getting to the ballpark. They were done before I even stepped foot in the press box. That's how bad it was yesterday for Andre Pallante, and it wasn't really like he was giving up one homer after the next. It's still a lot of ground balls. It's some balls that, find a way through, some hard contact for sure, but, it's just that's maybe what makes it a little bit frustrating is like there are elements of the game for him that are happening the way you would project them to. It's just the barrel rate is unbelievable right now, what guys are able to do to Andre Pallante, and it's getting to a point where there's nothing left to be said. Ricky Horton is as positive of a person as you're going to find, and I was driving in yesterday hearing the broadcast on the radio, and he said, as Dusty Blake comes out to visit, says, at a certain point, there's not really much else for your pitching coach to tell you when they've tried everything. The catchers are trying everything, and it's just not working right now for Andre Pallante. That kind of was the signal to me of like, this could be going in a direction where they're going to have to figure out another way, whether that is a demotion to the bullpen or AAA Memphis at some point for Pallante. That would not surprise me, especially after hearing the post-game comments last night from Oliver Marmol. He didn't say, we're doing this, but at a certain point, he's at a loss as well as to the next steps for a guy that, we've seen be very good at times in the past, but right now, guys are just all over his stuff, and there's really no great answer if Andre Pallante isn't the one to provide it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people would make the argument that on a good team, the version of Pallante that we saw last year and early in the 2025 season would probably be your number 4 or 5 starter. By necessity, he was the number 3 starter in the rotation for the majority of the year because of the struggles of Michaelis and Eric Fetty. Now things have evened out a little bit for him, and you're starting to see the other shoe drop a bit for Mr. Andre Pallante. And I think one of the difficult things that you have to ask if you are the Cardinals is if you send Pallante down or push him to the bullpen, who's your next starter? Who comes up and takes his place in the rotation? Or is it somebody already on the roster that you give a chance to maybe stretch out?
Yeah, I think it would have to be, and like it might not be as sexy or exciting, but it might have to be somebody that comes from below, because you do run into the question of innings. Like with some of the other names in the rotation, you've got Matthew Liberatore that is struggling to maintain his velocity, and it's been kind of floated that you like to have the length guys like Leahy, like Swanson available in case there's a hiccup there. Michaelis has certainly, especially on the road, had his games where you can't count on him to go very deep. And then Pallante last night, he just had to, whatever he was going to provide, he was going to provide over the course of about 100 pitches, because you just can't take him out of the game in the first when the game is pretty much already decided. So I do think it would look like bringing up somebody from beneath. And like, I think you do genuinely have options for that. My 1A for that would be Curtis Taylor. And I don't know where he is in the rotation. It looks like he last pitched on the 23rd of August, but it was another good one from him. 7 innings, no runs earned. He did give up a couple of unearned runs. This is not a gentleman that would be considered a prospect. Okay, he's 30 years old. He doesn't throw super hard. like I said, there's nothing necessarily sexy about saying, hey, we're going with Curtis Taylor. But I think that is a better option at this point than Andre Pallante. They cannot keep Pallante in the rotation to continue doing this for the benefit of the team, for maybe his own personal benefit as he continues to get shelled every fifth day. I think there is more that Pallante could potentially offer the Cardinals down the line. Right now, doing it in a different environment would be my recommendation and my preference. And if I had to guess, it's Ollie Marmol's preference as well, based on the way that, again, not putting words in his mouth, and he was careful not to say, anything before he talked to the player. He said, I want to evaluate it with the player and get a chance to talk with him and see what we're seeing. Pallante, to his credit, did seem after the game to, well, I would say he was downtrodden for sure. Like, it was hard to be in that clubhouse hearing Pallante talk about his outing. He did sort of make the implication that he feels like he knows what the plan of attack should be. He's going to have to get more swing and miss with the fastball, and that comes down to locate and get more effectively. So it feels like he at least was able to articulate a plan of attack. But for that to happen at the big league level feels far-fetched right now, because if it were going to, why hasn't it over the past 4 or 5 starts for him? So I would go with Curtis Taylor personally. You could talk about other guys that could give you innings like an Aaron Wilkerson. The Cardinals do make a move today. John King back on the injured list, which is tough to see. Andre Granillo, though, takes his place. So at this point, lefty, righty, it doesn't really matter. They're just looking for innings to get through the remainder of the season. I think we have officially reached that portion of the proceedings. But I would say, like, Curtis Taylor, not a prospect and not somebody that I think you pencil in to have any role in 2026. But stranger things have happened, and I think it's worthwhile to, while you have Pallante literally just floundering out there on the mound every fifth day, let 30-year-old Curtis Taylor have a big league debut. Let a guy that has been an organizational, good soldier for you and has put together good numbers in Memphis. He cannot be any worse right now than Pallante. And I am a real big fan of Andre Pallante, so it hurts to say that. But I also think it's true. We don't want to, shine this up to be something that it's not. Pallante is going through it. I think reward Curtis Taylor and show that good soldiers do in this organization, when it's appropriate, get an opportunity in St. Louis.
And I think that's a great point, Brenden. Before we move on, a quick reminder that this show is powered by Gray Bar, your distributor for electrical and datacom needs. This show is Card Central 365. Brenden Schaeffer and Stefan Caray here with you, talking about last night and everything moving forward for the Cardinals. One thing that is frustrating when you watch Andre Pallante pitch is the issue isn't getting ahead in counts. You see that he gets ahead time and time again, but you get to 0-2 and 1-2, pitch in the dirt, pitch away, just struggling to locate. And I'm not going to suggest that it's a fear factor, but I'm also not going to say that that isn't there. You kind of watch for some of these younger starters as compared to, say, some of the other starters that are coming out there for other organizations. There are strike throwers. Matt Swanson, what's made him most successful is his ability to challenge hitters and to throw pitches in the zone. Yes, he has more velo, but again, these guys could time up a bullet train if it's going straight. So I think it really is interesting. And your point about Pallante, I don't really see a reality where he goes back down. And this is interesting, I know, to hear for a lot of different people, but the disparity between the talent at AAA and at the major league level is, it is a Grand Canyon-sized gap. So for him to go down there and to maybe retool things and work on things is one thing, but there's no indication that that will help him at the major league level. I would be surprised if they send him down. I would be less surprised if he takes up a bullpen spot and becomes a long reliever, at least for the rest of the year.
Yeah, because the bullpen role that he was in, Stefan, to begin last season wasn't conducive to his game. You bring Andre Pallante into that fireman role saying, hey, get a ground ball. As we have seen, he could get you that ground ball and still get burned because it finds a hole. And next thing you know, he accomplishes the goal that he set out to do and get you that double play ball that it just doesn't, it doesn't find a glove. And so now you're like, oh my gosh, this guy stinks. I think Pallante at his best needs to be a multi-inning guy, and that's why I felt as a starter he could be most effective. He's not getting righties out, and that was really his problem out of the bullpen. Let's be real, though. He's not getting lefties out either right now. He is just flat out struggling. And when you think about what I mentioned, which is like sort of innings deficit for the team, there's really no harm in saying, all right, you're right. The AAA talent that he would face wouldn't tell us anything about his ability to adapt. So we could go down there and shove, and it's really not going to say he's fixed it. I would bring somebody up or maybe swap roles if you wanted to explore, stretching out Kyle Leahy. The way that potentially you get innings out of that bullpen, if you did that with a Leahy, I guess could just be Andre Pallante, and you could pick the spots with him a little bit more, which is why I'd still advocate for Taylor. I would advocate for Taylor getting a start and saying, can he give you 4 or 5? That would help relative to maybe what Leahy's going to be stretched out to do. Keep Leahy in the role where he's able to piggyback behind a Michaelis or a Liberatore if it's necessary on a given turn through the rotation, and then have Pallante available for those games that are feeling like they're an inevitability right now. You're down by 4 or 5 runs. Let him go work on some things in a multi-inning stretch where he can kind of accomplish his own personal goals while serving some value to the team. So actually, you've talked me into it. I wouldn't send Pallante down either. And to be clear, the Cardinals could have done it today. They didn't. They optioned, or excuse me, they put John King back on the IL, bring Granillo back as an injury designation, and they'll be able to use him in the pen. I like that idea for Pallante, and I think it's the best way to get him back on track because let's be real, Stefan, when we look at this 2026 rotation, and I know the comment here from Mizzou 755 would mention, getting a look at Quinn Matthews. Yeah, I think he's somebody that's going to get a look by the beginning of next season, but he's not a surefire guy to be in your top 5 next year. And he's also, very young and doesn't have any big league experience. So to think that he could just slide into a rotation spot next year and you don't need to go out and get anybody, I think is a fool's errand. You want Pallante to be coming in February 2026 with the best possible chance to help you in the state of mind, the state of physicality, everything he needs to do to attack to become that guy once again, because it would really help the Cardinals to have him available in that role. And maybe you got to take a step back right now with his role to be able to step forward in the future.
And with the bullpen as it is currently assembled, all you need is a decent starting rotation, and then you're in games. You're in the majority of the games you're playing. The question here, again, is how do the Cardinals view the rest of the season? They're 3 games under 500. How do they view it? I think they're going to try and win every single game that they're out there, but it seems like with the Mets continuing to win and the Cardinals losing a couple of tough ones over the last week, this season has shifted a little bit toward evaluating the rest of the players that you have. Evaluation is the operative word there. Why not evaluate some guys that maybe you didn't have as close of an eye on and see if you can find a diamond in the rough, no pun intended. So that's why I really like your idea with regards to Curtis Taylor and some of the other Memphis arms. Whoever it is, I know the Cardinals will have the team's best interest. And again, maybe you find out a solution for next year. There are so many question marks in that starting rotation for 2026. Who's going to fill it out? Is Andre Pallante going to be in the mix? You have to imagine he will be, but will he make it when it's all fleshed out? We have no idea. But last night was a frustrating loss for a number of reasons. The Pirates outscoring you 8-0 through the first 3 innings. That's just not really what you want to see if you're a fan of this team. And then you see them hold the Pirates scoreless through the final 6 innings of play. I mean, how many times have we said it this season? The Cardinals seem like they're in a hole in every single game. It feels like they have been down 3 or 4 through the first 3 innings a lot over the last 2 months.
It does seem that way. And, they did end up, after that, finding ways to put a couple of runs on the board. Nolan Gorman with a home run. It's good to see him continue to take those types of swings. And he's really at front and center, I think, in my opinion, on that evaluation topic for what it looks like the rest of the year, because he strikes out in just about every game, but he also does something that helps you just about every game right now. And I felt he was a little bit better defensively last night as well at third base. So, it is frustrating because you can find some positive takeaways, but it usually happens too little too late right now with the way that the starting rotation is not consistently giving you a real opportunity to win games. And I mean, the bullpen, you mentioned it, I feel like this could be a strength of the team for next year as you're finding out, okay, what can Graceffo do to contribute? Alcala maybe is a guy that sticks around. I mean, he's 3 strikeouts last night in an inning of work. He looked good. Even Ryan Fernandez had a good outing last night, too. Again, the game was beyond over at that point, but these are things that I do think matter in terms of evaluating what the hierarchy could be there coming into a 2026 season when it comes to, which of these guys do you keep on the 40-man? Because we hear about a 40-man crunch that I don't personally agree with. I think there's some, dispensable spots there, but they want to evaluate and see what they have in some of these guys. So it's unfortunate that you can't do that within the context of a competitive game last night, because as you said, you start out down 8-0. And I do feel like despite the fact that the Cardinals went the final handful of innings, didn't allow any runs and did put up a few runs of their own, I didn't love some of the little moments I saw within the game. Like Lars Nootbaar had a play in center field where he just it's just a bad play in right center field where he doesn't cut off a ball and lets it get by him because it doesn't look like 1,000% effort at that point. Never want to question what a guy is putting in and making it making it known that he's putting his all out there. But there are plays that we're starting to see those cracks form a little bit for the Cardinals. And that's what I would want to be really diligent about if I'm Oliver Marmol. You can't possibly just, convince every single player to be on 1,000% of the time. It's something we've heard about with Mason Wynn. Why has he been a Gold Glove contender this year and the deserved winner of the award, in my opinion? It's because he hasn't taken a single play off. Even the moments where the ball doesn't get hit to him, all he has said in his preparation for a play, you're seeing that consistency. I think you want to establish that. You don't want to throw away this last month of the season, and you want to make sure your players don't either. You want to be able to model after the type of way Mason Wynn is playing defense and being ready and taking every single play seriously, because I think that could be something that is infectious going into next year, even in a season that doesn't end in wildcard talks. Like, there are none of those talks at this point. It's done. It's over. But there are still things that you can value if you're talking about building a legitimate foundation.
And you have to imagine, for some of those players on the defensive side, it has to be frustrating when you're chasing the ball around the diamond through the first 4 innings of play and you're down 8-0 early, not in any way defending any of the players or maybe some plays that were or were not made. But it's got to be difficult, the mental side of that. And I will digress from that point. As we discussed, DraftKings is nothing beats relaxing on a hot summer day and watching baseball. And the simplest way to get in on the action is to download the Pick 6 app from DraftKings. It's crazy simple. Just pick more or less on the stats for 2 or more of your favorite players, and boom, you're in the mix for big cash prizes. Pick 6 available right here in Missouri. You don't want to miss out on all the fun. Don't settle for a smaller payout. Switch to Pick 6, and right now, new customers can get $25 in bonus picks with their first deposit of $5. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code STL Sports. That's code STL Sports for new customers to get $25 in bonus picks with their first deposit of $5. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
All right, welcome to Card Central 365, powered by Gray Bar. Brenden, Schaeffer, Stefan, Caray. A very aggressive take. Pallante needs to be designated for assignment. You don't want to lose every start of him over and over again. Well, I think there's still a 40-man spot to be had for the Cardinals. I might be mistaken. So DFAing him to free up a spot wouldn't make much sense. And again, he's a young pitcher. I mean, his value is still there. And if they weren't going to DFA Fetty early in the season when he was struggling, and they weren't going to let go of Michaelis, I know there was money attached to them. You have years of control with Pallante. There's no reason to DFA him.
Yeah. Now, look, am I guaranteeing that he won't be non-tendered in the offseason? I can't really guarantee that because he's making a little over $1 million this year after going to arbitration in ARB1. He'll be ARB2, which means he's going to get a raise. It's going to be probably in the $2 to $2.5 million range, even after a bad season. That is just the way it tends to work through the ARB process. That being said, the DFA terminology here is just that punitive. I hate seeing this guy pitch for my team because he's struggling, and so I want him punted off the bridge. I think it would be more intellectually honest if fans would say, I want you to punt him off the bridge like a football because I don't want him on my team. But let's discuss the merits of truly giving up on Pallante in that regard, Stefan. You mentioned with Michaelis, there's money. There will be a little bit of money attached to Pallante. Do we think he should remain in the rotation? No, I don't think either of us are saying that. However, there was a time, and it's literally as recent as last year, that he was the singular most effective starter in the rotation. He had 20 starts last year, ERA in the mid to high 3s. That was about as good as it got. That was, as good as or better than Sonny Gray on a statistical perspective last season once Pallante joined the rotation. Last year's not this year. And so you can't necessarily look at that and say, this is the guy that he's going to be again. He has got to make the adjustment. Andre Pallante is responsible for that, not anybody else. Not Oli Marmol, not the pitching coach, not Chaim Bloom, not John Mozeliak. Pallante's got to lock it in. And yeah, those guys can maybe help him along the way, but it's going to have to fall to him. The question is, though, how do you view sort of that conversation of the rotation for next year where I think they're going to have to throw bodies at the problem when it comes to spring training? And I'm talking about guys that you trade for, guys that you sign for $2-3 million. I'm okay with Pallante being a dart throw at $2.5 million if that happens to be his salary that you bring into spring training next year. If the Cardinals are in the business of cutting a guy that has a proven track record over that small of a sum of money, I am fearful for what that free agency is going to look like. I think Pallante's money should not be a consideration just yet. His track record is enough that whatever minuscule raise he gets in ARB, you grin and bear it and you pay it. And then you say, if we have to cut ties in 26, we can do that if he doesn't win a spot. But if we're in the business at this point of haggling over a couple $1,000,000 of a player that had been proven, I'm concerned for what that means for the plans of this ownership group going into the offseason.
Yeah, and this is an incredibly loyal ownership group. I think that's one thing that we have understood is that they stick with their guys for better or for worse. And I believe that Andre Pallante has been one of those guys. So we'll see how it all shakes out for Mr. Pallante and for the Cardinals. And the corresponding move, assuming there is a move, because there hasn't been one made yet, will be certainly something that we will discuss on this show or on the post game as well. I want to briefly dive into tonight, game number 3 of this series against the Pirates. Carmen Mlodzinski, who all of a sudden has a sub-4 ERA, but a 3-7 record against Sonny Gray, who's at a 4.33 ERA. Lots of swing and miss stuff for Sonny, but he hasn't pitched quite as well as we're used to seeing. Maybe that's fatigue at the end of the season, but still the most reliable start in this rotation.
Surely you have to win this ball game, right? I mean, this is one that I get it. There's no real stakes on the line at this point other than will they or won't they be able to climb back to 500, but you have to win this game. I get that Mlodzinski has had some better numbers of late, but ultimately this is your ace on the mound, for better or worse. Sonny Gray's your number one. And I think, honestly, the lineup right now for the Cardinals is in a place where, at the bottom, you have some questions for sure. And the bottom the bottom 4 players in tonight's lineup, it looks like it is already up at MLB.com, are Wins to JC Pajes and Church, and those are all sub 700 OPSs. But your top 5 have a 700 or better OPS. Nupar, Herrera, Burleson, Contreras, and Gorman. That is a pretty capable top 5, and it needs to perform like it tonight, in my opinion, to get the Cardinals back in the win column after what happened last night.
Yeah, win of paramount importance for the morale of this team as they head to Cincinnati after this, and then welcome the red-hot Athletics that are playing in Sacramento this year. Bloom has his work cut out for him this fall. Bringing in pitching is on the top of the list. I agree with that point, but I want to continue on that point with this schedule. The Reds have played excellent baseball since the All-Star break. The Athletics, and I was talking to my brother, for those who don't know, he does their games on NBC. He said, it's interesting. They have, I think, 16 more series after this. If they win 2 out of 3 of each of the next series, they'll be a 500 team. And they have 2 out of 3 from the Tigers, who are arguably the best team in the American League. This is a young and exciting core that will be coming into town next week.
Yeah, and you don't want to be caught flat-footed against this team that's, it feels like, okay, the records maybe aren't all that dissimilar, right? Like the Athletics are a losing team right now, and hey, so too are the Cardinals. We got to call it what it is. But it feels like that is a team and an organization that kind of sees the light at the end of the tunnel on a rebuild and says, we have the opportunity to be the change, right? We have the opportunity to bring this thing back and bring some respectability to the organization. Obviously, a lot of things changing. They're playing in Sacramento. They're going to be moving again here in a couple of years. But like for the players, there's pride in the performance. And I feel like that's something the Cardinals need to make sure to take into the last month of the season. You have got to have pride in your performance, not only from a team perspective, but from an indie perspective too. Like you are the opportunity to make this 40-man roster, to make this 26-man roster going forward, to be, traded and maybe DFA'd, but another team wants to pick you up because of what they saw from you at the end of the season in St. Louis. There is an individual perspective to this and a team one that I hope the Cardinals carry with them throughout the remainder of this season. And in that key series against the Athletics as well, I think will be interesting to determine.
Well, a whole lot of fun awaits the Cardinals, who now are 3 games below 500, trying to claw their way back in against the Pirates after a difficult loss. Well, for everyone here at STL Sports Central, this has been Card Central 365, powered by Gray Bar. All content, as you know, is provided by DraftKings. The crown is yours. For Brenden, Schaeffer, I'm Stefan, Caray. Brenden, thank you so much. I know you've had a busy day and are excited for Mizzou tomorrow. That'll be a blast. I'm sure that the coverage is going to be excellent and award-winning, as to be expected when you are on the mic. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll have the post-game coverage on the Card Central post-game show later tonight.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help.